Hey, what's up YouTube? So if you've been following my channel for a while, you'll know that I've done a ton of modifications on my FJ Cruiser, including integrating my garage clicker on the dashboard with a Toyota push switch like this one. Today, we're going to be doing that in my wife's RAV4. This is a 2010 RAV4. We recently had to replace our garage door motor because the old one died. Now I've got a brand new garage clicker, and I'm going to be integrating that into a switch blank in the RAV4 today. So that when I push this button, it activates this switch and then opens up my garage door. This switch is going to be integrated in this switch blank right here. Alright, before I go any further, I just want to illustrate the differences between the Toyota push switch sizes. Now this one here is the size that I use in my FJ Cruiser. And then this one here is the size that's going to fit in my RAV4. So if you have any switch blanks in your car, I know the 4Runner has some in this size. I think the Tacoma has some in this size. So these are different size switches, but the principle for this mod is going to work exactly the same. As far as I know, you can purchase these with different colored lights. This one happens to be blue, but you can take a look and see any other colors that might match your needs. Further illustrating some differences between these two switches, this one here is specifically a momentary switch, which means that when you press it, it goes back to its neutral position. This one here, where if you activate this switch, it stays in the locked position, and then if you deactivate it, it opens up. All right, so regardless, these switches all come with wiring harnesses that look like this. Regardless of which company you buy from, they should supply you with a wiring connector legend. So we're going to take a look at here. It says green is going to be connected to your source, which would typically be your car's battery. Red one, which would be this one next to the green. This is going to be connected to your accessory, which is going to be our switch. And then red 2 and black, these two are actually optional in the mod that we're going to do today. But I'm going to show you what they do. There's a bulb inside that is meant to illuminate when you turn on your dash lights at night. This one will light up as well. All right, just a little disclaimer here. I would only recommend doing this mod if you park your car inside the garage. The reason being is if you park outside of your garage and you have an attached garage to your house, someone could theoretically break into your car, grab the remote or the push button, enter your garage, and then enter through your house through a door if it's connected to your house. So that's just another important thing to consider. We ended up going with a Chamberlain, and I'm going to be using a remote like this. All right, so to start, I'm just going to remove this metal clip from the back. You just slide it off of this track here. I would recommend using a coin. I've found that nickels are probably the best coin to use for this because a penny or a dime is a little bit too thin. A quarter is a little bit too large, but a nickel fits in this little gap quite easily. And then you just kind of nudge that in there and give it a little twist. All right, and then there's another one here in the front. Stick the coin in there. And then twist. All right, so you can actually pull out this entire circuit board. It's just snapped into place and held together with friction by these two tabs here. You can just kind of open the tab a little bit and then remove the entire circuit board. All right, so this is it. If you watched my FJ Cruiser garage remote video, if you flipped the circuit board around, you would see these metal contacts on the back of the board. This one doesn't have it, so we're going to have to solder connection points not to the back but to the front here. And if you look at this switch here, this is what completes the circuit. So if you push the button, you're going to see that the garage door is going to close. All right, so just to demonstrate the way that this circuit board works, if you look at this connection point and this connection point, I've got a piece of metal. It's long enough to bridge the distance between this point and that point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to touch this piece of metal to these 2 points, and essentially it's going to connect these 2 points and close the circuit, which is essentially the same thing as this button being pressed down. Okay, so just watch very closely and listen for the garage door to activate. All right, so those two pieces have touched. They've closed the circuit. You can hear the garage door being activated. It's coming on up. That's the principle at play here. We're closing this circuit by connecting these 2 points. Okay, so now that you've seen that, what we're going to do is we're going to take our switch. Okay, we're going to connect it to the wiring harness. All right, so now we have our wires connected to our switch. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use green and red one. They're going to be connected, each one of these, to one point here and then the other point here. Okay, so that's connected, and then I'm going to use my other finger here to press the switch. Okay, all right, so now the switch is closing the circuit, and now the garage door is being closed. All right, so you've just seen that. I've not plugged anything into any battery or anything. I'm just going to use this 3-volt button cell battery to power the circuit board. It's a lot easier to do it this way than it is to wire this into your car's battery, because your car's battery is on a 12-volt system. These batteries last for years. Whenever the time comes when I'd have to replace this battery, all I got to do is remove this thing, put in a brand new button cell battery, which is a CR2032, and then I'll be done. Now we're going to go ahead and start connecting things. All right, so now that you've seen these two wires in play, what are these other two for? Red 2 and black. All right, so red 2 and black are meant for the switch illumination. I'm going to demonstrate that by using a battery. This is just a battery that I have for my video light, and I'm going to connect these wires to my battery and show you what they do. Okay, so I'm now removing insulation from red 2 and black. So now that I've got my exposed leads, I'm going to connect my red to the positive side, and then my black is going to go into my negative side. And as you see on the switch, you'll see that there's a blue light that illuminates. This light is meant to come on when you turn on your headlights, just like the stuff that illuminates on your dashboard. All right, so again, you've seen that I've not connected this to the car at all. This is all powered by a battery. This red one in particular is going to be connected to your car's battery through a fuse. And then this one here, the black one, is going to be grounded to your car's chassis in order to complete that circuit. So these two are completely independent of these two. Like, these two are going to go into the 3-volt right here, and then these two are going to go into your car's battery system and chassis. Okay, I know that was a long-winded explanation, but I hope that that concept makes sense. And now we're going to go into the car, and I'm going to show you where some of the fuses live that we're going to be using. I'm going to try to get some access to this panel here, so I'm just going to stick a piece of trim removal tool in here and open that up, and now I have access to more space to work with. This here is the switch blank that I'm going to be installing into. So now I'm just going to reach my hand underneath and pop out that switch blank. This is where our switch is going to go into. So essentially, once I wire everything, the wires are going to be fed through this hole, and then this switch is going to be snapped into place like so. Down below, the wiring is going to get fed even further down where the fuses live. All right, I know it's kind of hard to see, but I'm going to turn you guys around, and if you see those colored things over there, okay, those are fuses, and you can see here this black thing here is called an ADA circuit. This is what it looks like. Take a close look at which kind of fuses your car takes, because this one here is a low profile. They also make a second size called the mini fuse, which is slightly larger. Just taking a quick look here. Short one here is the low profile, and this one here is the mini fuse. This one fits in my RAV4, this one fits in my FJ Cruiser. So different cars have different size fuses. Make sure that you are buying the correct size fuse and the correct size ADA circuit, because this ADA circuit is made specifically for the low profile mini fuse, whereas an ADA circuit like this one would be for the mini fuse. All right, so you can see that the prongs on these two guys, they're different lengths. All right, so this is made for one type of fuse, this is made for another type of fuse, and Just double check which size fuse your car takes and buy the appropriate fuses and add circuits. All right. This butt connector here is going to get connected into here. So what this is this just a piece of metal covered by this blue plastic here, and this exposed metal gets inserted into there. You crimp it with a crimp tool. Now you have a connection between this wire and this add circuit. And what this is meant to do is this is meant to allow you to piggyback off of an existing circuit. So if you remember the fuses down in the car's fuse box, what you're going to have to do is you're going to take one of those existing fuses out and place it into, there's two slots here. You're going to place it into the first one. This is one slot. And then the second one is going to be, you're going to add another fuse, and then that fuse is going to piggyback off of this one, which then powers your accessory. So you can crimp it or you can solder it. I would highly recommend soldering, which is what I'm going to do now. I'm just going to snip this blue thing off. Okay, now that I have this end, I'm going to strip off some insulation. Before I do that, I'm going to grab some heat shrink, place it over this wire. So I'm just going to kind of twist these two wires together. I'm going to lay some of this down so that they're permanently bonded. So now we've got red 2 connected to this ADA circuit. Okay, so I'm going to bring the heat shrink tubing over and then heat that up and seal that shut. All right, so we got one down, we got 3 more to go. Okay, so now I'm going to work on the black line, which is going to be our ground wire. Since this is relatively short, I'm going to extend it and give myself a little bit more room to work with when I find a grounding spot to connect this to. So I'm just going to grab some black wire. I don't know, maybe about a foot would probably be sufficient. Cut that, strip the ends, grab some heat shrink tubing. All right, and then do the same thing. So I'm going to connect these 2 wires together and then solder them. All right, on the other end of this black line, I've got one of these loop connectors that is going to allow me to connect this wire into a grounding bolt. The metal wire makes contact with the metal ring, terminal ring here, right? And then the ring gets grounded to a grounding bolt. This garage clicker housing has these very small openings in here, which this wire is actually too thick to fit through. I've got an old Ethernet cable that if you've ever cut open an Ethernet cable, you'll see that inside of it has these like smaller sets of wires inside. I've snipped off the terminal end, and I'm opening up the insulation here, and you'll see all of these little wires. So I'm going to select one set of these wires, which are thin enough for me to snake through there, so that I can then make the connection to the circuit board and connect it to my switch's wiring. All right, so now I've separated the wires inside. I'll pick green since it's easy to see. I'm going to cut off all of this. All right, so I'm going to feed these two green and white wires through the back of the circuit board. I've stripped some of the insulation off of each end. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lay a little bit of solder on each of these connection points, and then once I have that sort of liquefied, I'm just going to dip these two tips into that and then kind of seal that connection. All right, they're on there. Now I'm just gonna place this circuit board back into its seated position. All right, so that's back in place. So now what I'm gonna do is connect these two to red 1 and green. Let's just close this guy off. These two green wires are going to get connected to these two, right? And then I'm going to cover them up with this heat shrink tubing. I'm going to go ahead and feed this into the slot here. All right, again, none of these circumstances are ideal. Would not really want to be soldering anything outside of a table. All right, so I've just sort of twisted these two wires together. Let's just test our switch before I solder anything. So right now I'm just going to push the switch and the garage should close, and sure enough it does. There it goes. So now that our switch is working, I'm going to solder these things together, and then we will connect our ATA circuit and our ground connection for the light. All right, so I've heat shrinked the green and the red one, and then I've threw a little bit of heat shrink here just to kind of close off this wire loom here. So at this point I'm confident enough to snap this switch into place. So this is going to live here. Our switch is connected to the remote. All we got to do now is connect the illumination lights, and that is the ATA circuit and the ground wire. Every fuse box should come with a diagram. I'm looking for a fuse that is connected to something that will turn on when the headlights are on. And right here we have one for the tail light. Obviously when you turn on your headlights, your tail lights will come on. There's one here, 7.5 amps for a panel. Yeah, I believe it's your gauge cluster. This should also turn on when you turn on your lights. Probably gauge 2 as well. But I'm seeing here that this is at the far end of the fuse panel. So I'm gonna have a hard time plugging in. I need some clearance to be able to plug in this ATA circuit, right? So what I've done is I've selected this one here, 7.5 amp panel. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull the fuse from this circuit. I'm gonna insert it into the ATA circuit in this first position. Okay, it's going to go into here, and again, so once I plug this back into the fuse box, it's going to act as if that fuse was not removed at all, and then throw another fuse in there to power my accessory. Okay. All right, it's a brown fuse. I've just pulled it. We've got our ATA circuit. Again, original goes into here. The piggyback one goes right on top of its back, right? And now we're set with our power. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and reattach this ATA circuit into that same fuse slot that we pulled that original fuse out of. And that should then power this red line and allow this secondary fuse to piggyback off of that and give this switch power to light up whenever the headlights are turned on, okay? All right, so that fuse is firmly in place now. And then all I got left is to connect this ground wire. A grounding spot that I like to use to test is this screw that connects the door to the car chassis. So I'm just going to touch this, right? And then I'll turn on the headlights. And then you can see that the blue light is illuminated. All right, so my grounding spot, which I've used previously for a USB charging port, is behind this kick panel here. You can see, it's a little hard to see, there it is right there. That's the screw that I'm going to use. So back here there's a little thumb screw that I've got to undo. Now I can pull this out of the way and get access to this screw. There's a little bit of weather stripping to remove out of the way, but that's going to be my screw. And I'm going to connect this to that. Basically like that. It's going to go back into its spot, get tightened up, and essentially that's going to be the ground that we're going to need to complete the circuit. And then when I turn on my headlights, you can see that the light for the switch turns on, right? And then when you push the button, that activates the switch. The garage is going to open. And that's it. We're done with the mod. Illuminating the switch is optional, but this is kind of a nice additional touch just to kind of get this light to come on whenever you turn the headlights on. So it's just nice to have this integrated garage opener switch. But anyway, that's how you do it. I hope you found this video helpful and informative. Let me know if you give this a try on your own. Again, I'll link all of the items that I use in the video description so that you can purchase your own items and try this project out for yourself. All right, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out and let me know, and I'll catch you on the next video.